Guys, welcome to today's video where I'm going to show you how to fit 35-inch tires on your Lexus GX470. These are the final shots of my 33-inch tall skinny tires. These are 255, 80, 17-inch tires. So here's some preliminary measurements. We'll go over that more in depth at the end when we have the 35 by 1250s installed. Actually, they're technically 315, 70, 17s, but that's basically the metric equivalent of a 35 by 1250. So here I'm at the tire shop and the rig is going in. Now, I should have started cutting some plastic before I went to the tire shop, but I was in a rush. They got the tires in. They incentivized me to come in before month's end because they were in a competition with some other shops. I went in and they made it worth my while. Here you can see them just installing the tires after mounting and balancing them, and man, it is looking super aggressive already. I'm really excited about this. This is Guillermo. He's, I think, the general manager of the store, and he's a Toyota off-road enthusiast as well. He's got like a stage 9 Icon lift on his Tundra 4x4, so he was really cool and helpful. Check out how everything looks. It fits up pretty tight, but as you'll see, there's a surprising amount of room underneath these fenders, so don't be too afraid to upgrade to 35-inch tires. Now, I'm going to show you what you need to trim before getting your tires mounted so you're not like me, rubbing all the way home on the plastic behind the tires. So obviously, you have to get rid of the mud guard. And before I made the trip to Harbor Freight to get the angle grinder, I just wanted to use some, garden trimmers to cut off some of the plastic that was most egregiously rubbing there. So that's what you see me doing here. This is again before I went and got the proper tools. I just wanted to not rub so much on my way to Harbor Freight. So here you just see me removing all that stuff. And again, here is that pinch weld that the tires will hit. What you can do before you get your 35-inch tires mounted is go ahead and tap this thing towards the inside of the vehicle as much as you can, just to, after trimming the plastic Fender Weld liner like that, just hit it with a hammer a couple times, like this. A little harder than this actually. This is just for the camera pretty much. So you can kind of bend it over just enough to where the tire will clear without rubbing too bad. Now we're gonna make this permanent in this section of the video where we actually cut slices into that pinch weld, and then we hammer those slices over towards the inside of the fender well so that it gives us a nice smooth finish so we don't have to worry about rubbing there in the future. Now, as you can see, I've already gotten a body mount chop, so we don't have to worry about that. If you don't know what that is, you can see that black thing behind the fender well that the body mounts to there. That gets in the way of even 33-inch tires. So in addition to the body mount chop, I also have my caster maxed positive. So here's the top and the bottom of the pinch weld. I'm gonna start up here at the top and just work my way down, making tiny slices like this. And as you can see on this first attempt, I didn't quite go deep enough on some of those, so I'm gonna go back and cut those a little bit deeper so that I can get to the... And you'll also see this kind of tab in the way. I tried to bend it off at first with some needle nose, but you're better off just getting your angle grinder and just grinding that thing off so it doesn't get in your way as you make your cuts. What I'm also doing is removing all these ugly plastic brackets from the bottom while I'm in here, just so that I have a nice smooth finish on the bottom and that doesn't bother me anymore. You're also gonna have to cut some of that metal bracket underneath that kind of mounts the fender to the frame, but we can do that later. For now, I'm just keeping going on making those small cuts in the pinch weld, and here you can see me actually hammering them over. I noticed a lot of videos don't actually show what it's like to hammer them over, and I like to give you guys as good of an idea of what the process will involve as possible, so that's what I'm doing here. You can can see that we're getting to the point where we have more of a smooth fender well instead of one that's obstructed by a huge pinch weld like we have here. Now we get to the thick metal at the bottom. There's nothing more especially difficult about this bottom part. It just takes a little more time for the grinder to cut through that metal. So just be patient, take your time. As you can see, I'm wearing full PPE, including eye protection and even respiratory protection, because that paint heats up and it makes a nice thick smoke. So definitely don't want to be breathing that in too much. So here I'm finishing up the final cuts, and now I'm gonna just hammer them over just like this. And I really like these time lapses because they kind of show the stuff being bent over really quickly. But in reality, it takes a while, so just take your time. Don't be in a rush with this job, and you'll get it no problem. Now I should have done this first. I'm taking out the plastic inner fender liner thing. So again, do that first. Don't be like me. I'm doing that because I want to cut out the inside of the plastic fender, of course, and then I need to cut out the inside of the metal fender. Again, that's a piece that comes straight down and would definitely catch the tire if you don't cut it as far up toward the sky as you can. I'm going to show it better on the other side and coming up in just a bit, just so you have a better idea of what this all looks like to do. I'm just trying to give everybody kind of a preview of what they're in for if they want to do this job. So here I'm painting over all of the exposed metal parts that I grinded the paint off of, just so that there's a bit of protection. And I was running really low on paint, so I did kind of a horrible job. I know, I'm sorry about that. Anyways, here's a not quite full lock with the front tire on a ramp, just to show a little bit of flex. And you can see that I noticed I need to cut a little more plastic out of that inside. And as for the rear, I don't think you have to worry about the rears just for the mounting. Maybe you'll have to get rid of your mud guards like I have, but at least on street driving, you should be fine. If you start experiencing some tuck rubbing when you're on the trail, then you might want to cut a little more out of there. But most of your problems are going to be on the front. And as you can see, I've cut out a significant amount of fender from there, and I'm going to cut out even more from this side so that the tires clear every bit of plastic that's on the back side of the fender, which is where most of your problems occur. Again, here's the back. It tucks pretty dang well when it's all flexed out. I'm thinking that I'm going to trim a bit off of the inside of the metal here, and probably some of the plastic as well. Maybe just a ½ inch or so should do it. And the front's pretty tight, but I don't think it'll hit too bad. We'll see when we get there. I really don't want to be trimming that door plastic, but again, if we have to do it, we gotta do what we gotta do. As you can see, I've already cut out my mud guards, so you might want to consider that as well. Now let's get to the other side, where I can show you more of a better way of doing it, because I had experience with it at this point, kind of had a better idea of what I wanted to do. So this time, as I said before, got on my PPE and started by ripping out that plastic fender liner. I don't want to get rid of this stuff, and I'll show you why, but here I'm just making the cuts in the pinch weld like we did before, and this is actually a pretty cool shot here. Once I get it done and get the hammer out, it kind of goes up like I just love that. It looks really cool, makes it look super easy. Again, take your time with this, but the second time you do it on the other side of the vehicle, you're a little better at it at this point. And here you see me cutting out the inside of the plastic fender liner, and then I get to the metal side where I cut off the tabs so that I can get the angle grinder in there as high as possible. Again, just cut as high as you can with the angle grinder. The space in there is pretty tight, so you might be limited and you might have to, find a couple different angles to work the angle grinder and stuff, but you'll get it. The back a little bit, all that exposed metal, just so it doesn't rust. And let me show you the reason why I want to put the factory fender liner back in place. This is your air intake, okay? If you don't put your fender liner back in, there's nothing preventing water from a puddle on a rainy day or anything from getting up in there, let alone going through some sort of water crossing. People have locked up their engines, hydro-locked their engines by not having anything in place here. So I think you're crazy if you don't run any sort of fender liner, at least if you don't have a snorkel or something like that. So definitely consider that. If you have another solution, that's fine. I'm just gonna try to reuse this plastic fender liner. if the tire rubs onto the plastic fender liner a little bit when I'm off-road, I don't really mind that too much, as long as my intake air is protected from water intrusion. So these images show that I am good to go at full tuck with these tires, so let's move on to mounting up a spare. I got some Chinese 35 by 1250 spare off of eBay, and you see my son playing it there. It's an Iron Man something rather. It's a F rated, so super heavy tire. It was only like 190 bucks, so 35 by 1250, brand new for that price. I just had to do it and throw it on the back, even if it doesn't match the other ones. It'll get me off the trail in a pinch to the tire repair shop if needed. And check out how perfect the fitment is. This Restless Off-Road tire carrier got a 35 by 1250 within 4 fingers of the tailgate, so it's just mint. Let's check out the measurement differences between the tire setups. Really pleased with the results of the new setup, and I'm looking forward to getting this thing out on the trail. Of course, before we get too crazy out there, we're gonna need a re-gear, so stay tuned for that. We have some really crazy build stuff coming up in the next month or two, so definitely check out the channel, subscribe, like the video, all that good stuff. Thanks so much for joining me for today's video. We'll see you in the next one.